Hello there. Many thanks for listening and watching the live or the replay, which you can watch at your leisure. It's Andrea here, and I'm going to be talking about a webinar that I attended that was by the Association of Employment and Learning Providers. It was run by a Richard Pendle, and he is HMI and specialist advisor about further education skills, and was also joined by a Kate Hill, who was also a HMI inspector. So my name's Andrea Jackson. I work at Nu-Gnu, and Nu-Gnu supports all training providers to know how their learners and employers are being impacted by their training provision, and we help to improve that impact. That enables training providers to go through any inspection with comfort, but also to be secure in the knowledge of they've got a robust product that they can then grow both location wise and product wise. So that's what we do. So I'm going to be talking, I have copious notes. Let me explain. I've got a computer over there, get me technical, that's got some of the notes on. I've also got some notes here, simply because I don't want to get it wrong, what I'm about to say, because that would be awful. So if you do see me moving and I'm looking at something else, it is the fact I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so let's get started. So this was a report on the autumn term activity of the interim visits from OFSTED. And what they've done is they've organised training providers. I think we've discussed this when I was talking about the 10 interim reports we had a couple of weeks ago. So they've looked at all of the training providers that had a grade 3 and 4, which, as you know, is requires improvement and inadequate. And they also looked at a sample of grade 1s and 2, which is outstanding and good. So that was sort of like that's their rationale for their sampling of training providers. Okay, so their aim is to look at all the training providers and come up with an overall report. And the overall report we're expecting around the end of November. That's when we're all expecting this report. Now, as I've mentioned before, the interim visits were not based on the education inspection framework. There was no data. It wasn't looked at. The SAR wasn't looked at. The QUIP wasn't looked at. And also there was no connection with any previous inspections that had happened. There was no grade and no judgment call. And as I've just said, so it's a national survey on the training, and eventually we'll get a report on these visits, but also a survey and a blog. Okay, then. The thing to remember is that there still is that thought that they want to commence the EIF, the Education Inspection Frameworks, as soon as practicable. And they're still looking at January. And what they want to be looking at is the systems that are being used, the IT equipment. I mean, this is all based around what's been happening, and the fact that the crisis that we've had, the pandemic that we've had, isn't going away soon. They're looking at the training that people have had, both learners and employers and staff, to actually look at the change that has had to be made from the remote training that's happening now, and what used to be the one-to-one training that was happening, but also how colleges and large training organisations with classrooms are getting themselves classroom ready. So that's the future, with an eye that the education inspection frameworks will be coming in. Super. Okay, then. So let me have a look at the findings that they found. Looking down, I think it's very much, goodness knows what's happening there. I think it's Ofsted giving everybody a pat on the back. They can see what's happening. They can see the awfulness that's happened in our training provision. And sorry, my computer's gone mad. over there. They can see the problems that every training provider has had. They can see the issues that's happened, the crisis that's happened, the impact from the training provider. So I think this is a pat on the back for training providers. So let me show you what they've said is, so they've said that staff have worked extremely hard and carried a significant burden. Yeah, absolutely. Haven't they just? I think we've gone, I hate to use the word unprecedented because it is used so many times, but it has been unprecedented, hasn't it? It's been a whitewater rafting for most of the training providers. And they're just saying we understand that. And there has been a huge amount of effort towards logistics, because obviously there has had to be, hasn't there? When you can't deliver face to face, or you can't deliver or assess as you normally do, the logistics in changing all that round is just a nightmare. So they understand that. Now, they also say significant thought has been given to curriculum structure and sequence, obviously, because what the training providers have had to do is go, do you know what, guys, we can't do this. We can't do the testing. We can't do an assessment. We can't be there. So we need to either look at the theory first. We've had learners on furlough, and that we've had to look at those, and we've had to look at the theory, the knowledge first. There's been changes to the order of the topics, which we've just talked about in relation to COVID. Yeah. And now I like this. The students were glad to return to resume their education. Do you know what? I think that's very true. I think the fact that for a lot of people, just getting back to some sort of normality has been the thing, hasn't it? You know, that we've all been able to hang on to, that there is some sort of normality. And also, obviously, the apprenticeships are pleased to return to work and learning. Well, wouldn't they just, you know, because the fact is, for apprenticeships, it's been, is my job safe? So actually that returning to work has enabled them to do that. Of course, the current situation is that may have changed, that the jobs may still not be safe with the second lockdown, because don't forget, this was before the second lockdown. They do say that students and apprentices clearly prefer face-to-face learning to live learning, to the remote learning. They like that. And I think that comes from the fact that obviously it is easier to do. It's easier to manage. It's easier to divulge information. It's easier for the knowledge to be understood. And there has been major problems with work placements, work and practical and vocational activities, obviously. So they're all of these things they're noting there has been problems with. Now, they've also said that furloughed apprentices has concentrated on theory and off-the-job training. Well done. You know, this is if they can do something and they're motivated to do something, this is the thing for them to do. There's been challenges with endpoint assessment and functional skills qualifications. I think the talk that I had last week, and it was talking about the Association of Employment and Learning Providers talking to the minister. These discussions about the problems with functional skills is going ahead, because obviously the situation isn't anywhere near normal. Now, what they do say is that online learning, either recorded or live, is not always the answer. And we know that because we don't have that immediacy. So if anybody's got a problem, it's not immediate. You can't get to that person, or it's very difficult now to look at body language while you're not there, because you've got that space away from your learners. So yes, that is going to be difficult, and people aren't going to think that that's always the answer. And I think this is a time for training providers now to start looking outside the box, which is, again, is not a term I'm comfortable with. But the thing is, we do need to be looking at other situations, because again, we don't know how long this is going to last. Now, although, right, so saying that, it's not always the answer, online learning. Sometimes the benefits of working online have been previously seen by nervous or reluctant staff. So staff with the right training are more confident about using online resources because, of course, with staff, they've never used it as well. You know, they've always been face to face. So it's a completely different environment for them. And that needs to be remembered. But with the right training, there can be some comfortableness is not a word, is it? But the point, what I'm trying to say is that staff are more comfortable using online if they know how to use it. It's that simple, isn't it? And also, in some cases, reluctant learners have participated more positively in remote learning. Now, we found this in the 10 of the reports that came through, that some of the learners actually found that their difficulties, because they weren't being shared by everybody in the classroom, made it easier for them. Here it says they're talking about using the chat function, which is also a really good method of communication. Although if anybody's ever done a live with chats on the one side, you'll find that it's really quite difficult. Digital poverty. Now, this is things that have been found across the board, haven't they? So it's access to suitable devices, internet connections have proved difficult in some areas and subjects. Some subjects do not raise themselves. They don't lend themselves to remote. They just don't. Also, if we think about people in the middle of town are living in flats, apartments, all sharing the same Wi-Fi, that signal is not necessarily strong. So that's got to be thought about. However, there has been many flexibilities noted from tutorials, in that there's been evening tutorials to enable people with responsibilities, caring responsibilities, to enable to attend. And I think one of the advantages of doing lives like this is the fact that, again, they can be added onto the stream and be revisited. So I think that might be helpful. But of course, anything that's live isn't immediate. There isn't an immediate communication unless you've got chats, and the chats can obviously only happen during a live. So if we go back to the education inspection frameworks, what the inspectors said was that they are looking, as we know, about intent, implementation, and impact. So they went to describe this. So intent, why is the curriculum sequenced and shaped the way it is? These are the things that you need to know. What is missing, delayed, or added? Now, one of the things that the inspectors were talking about when they were talking about functional skills and taking of the functional skills, they mentioned what's the possibility of using the employer as the invigilator. It's a thought, isn't it? Intent, does it affect learning? Is what's happening affecting learning? Are all teachers able to teach the whole course or qualification? What happens if conditions do not improve? And can all learners complete their qualifications? Those are going to be the questions. About implementation, it's the confidence and training for staff. What's happening? How's everybody feeling? What sort of training are the staff having in these completely different set of circumstances? So what is the impact of online stroke blended learning? How is that working? What's the impact? And how do staff now assess the learning? Impact questions. What have the learners learned? What skills have they gained? And can the learners apply that learning at work? Those are the things. Now, what the inspectors are clearly saying is, do not worry about inspections restarting. Just know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So Interim visits now are happening until December and will be remote, except for the visits that are for the new providers. And those are the new providers that when they had their first visit, they got an inadequate, or they got insufficient progress. So they will be having visits, simply because the grading is far too important for them to have a remote. Okay, then, so that's where I'm at. That's the webinar that I attended. I think it takes us on board from what the 10 interim reports told us. So to my mind, it was useful. I think for us now is, okay, so what? And I think in this current situation of change, it is vital that you, the training provider, know what is happening with your learners and your employers, that you know the impact what your training is having. It's vital. You need to know about their progress. Are your programs meeting their needs, not from a sheet of paper, but from what your learners are telling you? Okay, so that's my message. That's my message. So what do you need to do about it? So on the webinar, on this, the live, I never know what to call them. If you want to send any of your comments, you'll find it on the Facebook page. You'll find it on the LinkedIn, and it's also on YouTube. So if you want to send your comments in on the Facebook and the LinkedIn page, that would be great. If you want to contact me about any sort of support that you may or may not need, phone me for a chat, contact me and we can have a chat. In that instance, you can contact us on the website, which is www.Nu-Gnu.com, or you can contact me on the address that's going by on the ticker tape, which is andrea@nu-gnu.com. Thank you so much for listening, watching me on the live. Thank you. And also for you watching on the replay. That's excellent. I know there's a lot of you that are following me on the journey with Nu-Gnu, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for your support. But as I say, send any comments. If you want to send any comments, have a look at our Facebook page and our LinkedIn page, because that's where we are, Nu-Gnu. You can contact me on my email, which is andrea@nu-gnu.com. I'm actually looking at the ticker tape as it goes through. And also we've got a website that you can put any comments, any questions, and that's www.nu-gnu.com. Many thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it. And I will see you soon. You take care. Bye-bye.